My name is Jill Coyle, and from years of experience as a divorce attorney, I know for a fact that no one dies from divorce. The experts and I are here to show you how to not only survive, but thrive during the most difficult times. Welcome to another episode of No One Dies from Divorce, where I have my very good friend, and I'm so grateful that she came back on the show. Mary Crafts, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Jill. It's first of all, just a delight to spend time with you. And then I get to talk about one of my favorite things are taking the camera from looking out this way and turning the camera to look in here to really understand who we are and where we're going.
It's so good. And your journey and what you're doing now, it's so inspiring to so many people. And I love it. I mean, I am completely on the Mary Crafts like wagon of, yes, we can do hard things. Like you truly are an inspiration. And your new book, Unbounded, I mean, I know your story because
I just happen to have a copy right here in case you need to look at it. There you go.
I love it. First of all, congratulations on getting the book out. As another fellow author, it's a road. Nobody can understand how hard it is to get from that time of when you decide to write a book to when you can actually hold it in your hand. So congratulations. That's so exciting.
I think of all the times I was 3 years in this process. And I think of all the times that I almost completely walked away, put it up on the shelf and said, okay, it was a nice memoir for my grandchildren. And thank you. I'm done.
Yes, I know. It's the same with me. And how many times like I went on vacation and I was like, okay, vacation is the only time I have time to myself. So I spent 2 days of my vacation to just get it done and write it. It's exhausting. So I can totally sympathize with it. I want everybody to know, all my listeners, if you don't know who Mary Crafts are, I would be actually surprised, but I'm going to introduce you for our listeners. Okay. And her bio is absolutely amazing. So Mary Crafts has 100% all zest for life. As the founder of Culinary Crafts, Utah's largest off-premise catering company, and 21-time winner of Best of State.
Oh, wow. That's how old that is. I'm now 28 times Best of State.
Oh my gosh, 28 times. Well, thanks for but you have created thousands of impressive events throughout the state for over 35 years. You're prolific in Utah. Like everybody knows who you are. If there's an event, Mary Crafts is at it. I love it. You're also involved in many community nonprofits, business networks, and education, and have put in the spotlight as one of Utah's most influential women. I would absolutely agree with that. Recently, Utah Business Magazine named Mary one of their Women of the Year, and in previous years, Mary received the Hero Award from Silicon Slopes and the Pathfinder Award from the Salt Lake City Chambers of Commerce. She's also been named one of Utah's coolest entrepreneurs.
That was my favorite one.
It's so good. And is the recipient of the Utah Valley University Kirk's Engelhardt Ethics Award. In July of 2019, Mary accomplished another of her major life goals when she summited Mount Kilimanjaro. How old were you?
I was a week before my 66th birthday.
Oh, geez. It's just amazing. And then now you can add this to your bio. In November of 2022, Mary's most recent summit was publishing her first book, Unbounded, From Sorrow to Summit. It is available on Amazon. Currently, Mary offers her expertise as a keynote speaker, podcaster, business consultant, team builder, and mentor to businesses, nonprofits, and individuals. Mary is thrilled to share her hard-won life lessons with others as only she can, with her insatiable zest for life and heartfelt badass attitude. Stay in touch. Tune into Mary's weekly podcast, Crafting a Meaningful Life, and visit her website at marycraftsinc.com.
And that's not like I'm putting on tattoos. That's not Mary Crafts INK. That's Mary Crafts INC. I have so many people say, I couldn't find your website. And then they tell me how they spelled it. I'm like, I'm not a tattoo artist. Okay.
Who owns marycrafts.com?
Yeah, forever I was going to take marycrafts.com so it could be different from my old catering company. And a month before I did mine, an online fashion company in Florida took marycrafts.com. And I was just devastated. And they don't have the best customer service. So their people are always calling me because their number is not listed on their website. Mine's listed on my website.
And so they always are hoping that you guys are
Yeah.
connected.
I had people return merchandise to me here at my house. And I'm,
Oh my gosh.
it's a little bit of a nightmare, but
marycrafts.com. You should give the real Mary Crafts her website. Goodness gracious. Oh my gosh. That's so funny. I was grateful when I got jillcoil.com. I have a friend that's named Marco Brown, not very common first name, very common last name. He's doing the same thing, trying to fight for his website.
yeah, it's a deal. It's a deal.
So
but I've gotten used to it, and I like being Mary Crafts Incorporated. That just gives me a bigger platform to do more things. So
I love that. Well, I know your story, and I know probably a lot of people do, but what brought you to wanting to write this book, Unbounded?
Well, the short version of the long story is that at age 50, at 284 pounds, and in a truly disastrous marriage with a man that was a rage disorder, a paranoia disorder, bipolar, and gay for 28 years. I finally divorced him at age 55. But at age 50, the realization that no one was ever going to respect me and honor me as the woman I am until I honored myself. And so what did that look like? And how do I start to do that? How do I claim who I am? And so I just began that process as I realized how much of my life was caught up in fear.
Yeah.
Every single thing I did, Jill, every decision I made was based in fear. I was such an excellent caterer, not because I was just loved catering, because I was so afraid of making a mistake or being a failure or letting somebody go down or them not paying me or all sorts of things. I was there for everybody's beck and call.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go through that process of learning what it was like to cater out of fear versus catering out of love.
Mm-hmm.
And it transformed me, and it transformed my company. And this book, even though the stories are mine, because they're obviously the stories I know, the book is really a how-to book. It's how to recognize these fears that have been holding us bound.
Mm-hmm.
And once you recognize them, the next step is how to get rid of them, how to put them aside and be focused on who you really are. And the great and final step is once you've done that, you get to be this amazing person you wondered if you were, that maybe you dreamt about, but then were told you weren't, and then you this, and you get to claim that person.
Yeah.
And that, my friend, is the greatest joy. The greatest joy to know I'm living my authentic self, and what people see or what people get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it because we talk a lot about fear and what is the basis of fear. And I think when you really strip it down to be as simple as possible, because there's a lot of factors that come into why am I fearful, but it comes down to not knowing. So you just don't know. You're having to take a lot of leap or a lot of trust. And so, what is our fear based off of? And it's the inability to know. And a lot of us, when we're stuck in that position of, I just can't imagine the life after this because I don't know what it means. I don't know how it's going to be. I don't know if I can do it on my own. I don't know, and that is what builds up this fear that paralyzes us from going into action and doing, so how did you talk about like your transition from living out of fear to love, but how did you get to that point where you realize like, I can't be here anymore. Like it's not working for me and it's not going to, make me move forward.
Yeah. I was at the base of the Sydney Harbour Bridge in Sydney, Australia. And my whole life I had used excuses to get me out of situations that I didn't want to be in, that created fear inside of me. Oh, I can't show up for this because I'm sick, or I can't do this because I have another commitment, or if anything brought up fear inside of me, I would just find an excuse not to be there, rather than saying, either facing the fear or owning up to it and saying, you know what, that's just beyond me right now. I can't show up for that. And now I can say that freely, but amazingly back then, it was much more easy to lie, quite frankly, to say, oh, I have another commitment that day, blah, 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 rather than say, I have a lot of fear coming up when I think about going hiking in these beautiful mountains with my women friends, because what if I can't keep up? What if I give out, and what if I fall, and all that kind of stuff. And as I've researched this, Jill, for me, and read a lot about fear and journaled a lot about my own fears, that all fears come back to one basic fear, and that is the fear of not being enough. Fear of failure. Why would you fear failure? Well, because you fear, because you know you're not enough. Why do you feel of not being accepted and loved? Because you are afraid you're not enough. And all of those fears come back to this. All of us have been somehow damaged in childhood of believing that we were not enough, that we were not able to keep up with the expectations. And I can just hear my mom's voice over and again. That's not right. Do that again. Blah, blah. And I remember she was a 4-H leader, and I was, of course, a 4-Her, and I kept doing my end of the year record book. And she'd say things, I'm the leader here. I can't have you handing in a book like that. You have to do your best, not like that. I'm like, but just little things we don't realize that as a mother are influencing our children into believing that we don't show up enough. And so as I began to keep track of my fears, I actually journaled them when I would feel them, the sweaty palms, the throat, can't really talk, or my brain went into a fog. That sometimes happened when I was fear. Or the biggest one for me was I would slip into a fear mode, and then to compensate for that, I would eat. Eating would act as a protection for me. Eating would act as a way to get my mind off of the fear. And I used eating to compensate in so many things. So I began to see when I was feeling fear and when I was doing some self-destructive behavior. I actually journaled this stuff, like from here to here. One side of the page, this is the fear, and this is what I did. This is my fear, and this is what I did. And it was crazy as I began to realize how that every single decision in my life was based on fear.
Yeah.
We were at the base of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and we had just been touring the city. I was very excited to be there. All 3 of my children were there. I was still married at the time, was there. And my kids suddenly said, hey, look at that. There's a sign. You can go in there and you can climb the Sydney Harbour Bridge. I'm like, yeah, right. We're not going to do that. And then the dad said, yeah, okay, let's all go. And suddenly I was seized with this, almost, I couldn't even hardly move, because I didn't have time to make an excuse. As always, I couldn't say I'm sick all of a sudden, because obviously I'd been walking around along being just fine. I couldn't say I had something else come up because I'm on vacation in Sydney, Australia.
Right.
None of my usual excuses were there for me. And they were all like, he said, well, it's not that expensive. I go, look how dangerous it is. They tell you can't even take a pencil up there, because if it falls out of your pocket, it'll go into the roof of the car below. That's how high this place is. This is ridiculous. And then, of course, my kids are all like, well, look how fun it is. Everybody's going, blah, blah. I went into that bathroom and sat down, and I was just sitting on that toilet seat, frozen. I didn't know how to get out of this. And I just kept thinking, what excuse, think, Mary, rack your brain, think. And nothing would come to me. And then the most amazing thought came to me. This is fear. I'm letting fear rule my life. Make my decisions for me. Keep me from stepping into something wonderful with my family, this adventure. And I just could see it unfold in front of me. All the times I had missed out on my life because of fear. All the decisions I'd made because I wasn't enough. What a way to live your life. I'm like 50 now.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, not anymore. This is the last time. I came out of that bathroom kind of like a bull out of a china closet. Ah! And I just started, I just screamed. I said, let's go. Let's get our harnesses on. Let's go. Because I knew if I thought about it one more second, I was not going to go. And I got that harness on and we started up the ladders. And I'm like, I just got to keep my eyes closed. I just got to keep climbing. And I was crying. I got so high. I peed my pants. I looked down at the people who were coming up behind me. I was saying, I'm sorry about that. And I just thought, just held on, Mary, just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And finally, my son tapped on my shoulder and said, Mom, we're at the top. We are? I looked around and realized, dang, I can do this. And that one time, the first time I walked into fear and I was able to overcome it, freed me up to try it again the next time and the next time. It is all baby steps. When you think of running and you think of making an excuse, when you are frozen, I ask you just one time, step in.
Mm-hmm.
And that one time freed me up for this entire journey. Here I am 19 years later, and I've lost half of me. And I climbed Kilimanjaro. I did so many things I didn't ever think of. Write a book, do a podcast, so many things I didn't ever think I would do because of that one first step into fear. So as I was now age 60, I had accomplished all those things except for the Kilimanjaro thing and feeling pretty high in my course of life. And I sat in a board meeting with Martin Fry, who had just finished his final trek. He's the only man in the world that has climbed all 7 of the major peaks and sailed all 7 of the major seas. And he was giving his reporting and people were just like in awe and I'm sitting there thinking, I want to do something like this. I mean, obviously I can't do all those things. First, I don't have the money to do all those things. And next of all, I'm too old. It's beyond me to do that. But what could I do? Put my stake in the ground that says, I have accomplished this. I've become a new woman. I found the real me. So when he sat back down, his seat was next to mine. I turned to him. I said, Martin, I want to do something. I want to do something where I put the stake in the ground. I said, no, I can't do what you did, but I want to do something. He just turned right to me without hesitation and said, you shall climb Kilimanjaro. I was like, what? I mean, I'm in good shape now, but I can't do that. No, what else? And he goes, no, you shall climb Kilimanjaro. I was like, where is that? He said, it's in the heart of Africa. Really? And he said, how long do you need to take to get ready? Now, this is the value of having a champion in your life, not a cheerleader that's willing to clap their hands for you when you've done something great, but a champion is there when you are frightened, when you don't know where you're going and you haven't made your great, but they're there to champion you on. And he said, how long do you need to get ready? I said, well, I don't know, maybe 5 years. He said, 5 years? Mary, you're 60. You want to go up Kilimanjaro when you're 65? I go, well, I don't think I can be ready before then. He goes, all right. Start training. Let me know when you're ready for the next step. Well, the next 4 years, I stayed my usual fit and active, but when I finally turned 65, I thought, I wonder if everybody's forgot about this goal. Maybe I don't really have to do this. Maybe I'll be okay. And when I turned 65, Martin sent me a thing on Facebook and said, well, this is your year. Hope you're ready. And I wasn't. But I thought, you know what? All those fears are no different than the fear I had back at the base of the bridge. And I'm going to do this. I just have to commit to it and not look back.
Mm-hmm.
So I began, I spent a year climbing mountains, training, doing the stair stepper at the gym, going through all my preparedness, pack that they send you once you sign up. And I was ready to go. But the funny part is this, Jill. I thought I was ready to go until I got there. And then when I realized when I got there was all the fears that I thought I had overcome, how I was right back there facing every single fear again. Fear that I wouldn't be enough, fear I wasn't going to be able to make this, fear I didn't have the right clothes, fear that no one would like me, fear that I let somebody down, fear of failing. Not just me, but now my grandchildren and the whole world in Utah was watching them. And you once again say, just take that first step. And I did.
And you did it.
Yeah.
I think that's your journey, I think, is relatable to anybody going through whatever trial they're going through, because at the time, the trial seems insurmountable. It seems like Kilimanjaro. It's so funny because I am 40 and we got asked if we wanted to go do Kilimanjaro like a year ago. And I was like, I can't do that. And I'm like looking at you like, oh geez, there's my excuse. But when we're going through our trial and our challenge, we are so stuck in our own fear, just like you said. And it doesn't matter what we're going through. The biggest lesson we can learn from, Mary Crafts is that it's not going to be like an overnight like triumph. It's going to be that one step in front of the other.
Yeah. I have learned that there's a long distance between where you live in fear and where you live in love. And the passageway has lots of up and downs. But I do know, Jill, what the first step in to the passageway is. And the first step is when you're willing to be vulnerable of where you are and who you are and what all your fears are about. As long as we hide, we cannot heal.
Yeah.
But when the hiding stops, the healing can begin. And so many people think it's just the opposite, that they'll get better if they hide all their foibles and all the things that are about them and what they're scared of. And they just put out this big front of being this fearless badass. They're going to be just fine. And they'll catch up to it someday. There's a little truth to that, fake it till you make it. But when you have your whole life faking it till you make it, you realize that you're never going to make it.
Right.
And your whole life is a fake. And when I began actually sharing the fears I had with people and with myself, the thing I feared most, of course, was rejection. And what I found was just the opposite. Mm-hmm. People said, I didn't know you felt that way. I feel that way. It's like the other night when you and I went to dinner with that group of 5 women. And as we were sitting there and everyone was sharing different things they were afraid of, we're all like, hey, I've done that. I fear that. That's my deal. And you have this place, this common place where you have connection to people who are struggling just like you are. What you looked at and what you thought was Miss Perfect. The one thing I know for sure in life is we all have fears and we all have stuff for overcoming, that no one leads the perfect life that you might think they do. I have people say to me all the time on my Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and they'll say, Mary, wow, you're so photogenic. You look so beautiful in every photo. And I'm like, well, duh, I don't post the bad ones.
Right.
I mean, that is just like crazy. We put this false thing out there with We filter through all the photos, take the very best one and put it on social media. That's not who the real person is. I posted a couple photos last year of me just scrubbed clean and not a thing on my hair pulled back and just like nakedness. And, you know, the thing you realize when you do that is that how many people also like that. And they come right up. They're like, Mary, you look so beautiful. You just, because it's just you. I'm like, yeah, just me.
Well, and when we talk about fear and what's keeping us from moving forward, fear is also the basis of excuses. And you kind of pointed this out when you were talking about your journey. And excuses are just the building blocks or the bricks that we put in front of ourselves. You know, we build our own wall of excuses that keeps us from moving forward. And I can see how a lot of that is just fear-based. Like, just like you said, it's easier to fake it or to forget it rather than deal with it. So to all those people sitting here thinking like, I'll start tomorrow, or, you know, I don't know what to, you know, even how to start. Like, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. The big motto of my book at the very end, and I sum it up in just two short little sentences, and that is, one, it's never too late. No matter what excuse you're putting in front of you of, well, I'm too overweight, or I'm too old, or well, I don't have any money, or, you know, I'm in this relationship and I can't get out, and whatever it is, I've had 9 children, I'm never going to be strong and healthy again. I mean, whatever excuse you're putting out in front of you, I'll tell you, is false. And they can stand toe to toe with me and look in my eyes, and I will tell them it's never too late. I follow a woman on Instagram who I absolutely love. It's called Train with Joan. And if you don't follow her, you should. She is a woman who is in her 80s, and she always is showing her before and after pictures. She did not start training until she was 70. That's a year older than me. And she shows these pictures of her. She wasn't like prickly fat, but she was, you could tell she was just like blob, you know, no muscle tone, big belly. As women grow, you know, that belly, you know, blah, blah. And then how she just decided to get after it. And now she's 15 years later, and she's like, blah, ah, you know, showing up, you know, and power lifting up those. And I'm just like, oh, you go, girl, you go, you are amazing. And that it truly is never too late. The other big message in my book is that, and this is the one that you must really hear, that is, nothing is impossible. And if you're telling yourself those kind of statements like, well, I couldn't do that, well, that's impossible for me. I don't have that skill set, or I don't have the genes. My genes are this, or, you know, whatever. I'm not talking about genes like the tight ones that make your ass look good. I'm talking about genes that your parents gave you, and your parents gave you a whole dump truck load full of stuff, and that nothing is impossible. And that limiting view, that alone is probably what's keeping you stuck. So I put a Post-it note on my bathroom mirror at age 53. I was already 3 years into the journey, but just with a lot of little baby steps. And when I was still going, I thought, I need something that puts my feet facing on the right path every single day. And this Post-it note stayed on my bathroom mirror for 10 years. Now, sometimes I replace it because the cleaning lady would mess it up. I'd replace it. And this is simply what it said. What would I do today if I were no longer afraid? And I would think about that in my brain. I'd get up in the morning, I'd look at it, I'd think about what my day looked like, and I would think, you know what, if I wasn't afraid, I'm actually going to make that phone call that's been on my Post-it note forever on my desk. If I wasn't afraid today, I am actually going to go to the gym, and not just to walk on the back row of the treadmill. You know what? if I wasn't afraid, I'd go over there and I'd grab a hold of those weights and I'd do some shoulder presses straight up. Let's do the Arnold ones where you twist as you go up. If I wasn't afraid today, that's what I'd do. And then when I'd go to the gym, that would be in my brain. What would you do, Mary, if you were no longer afraid? People always think of me as this tremendous outgoing individual that can walk into any room, make friends, be comfortable. Well, as people who really know me know that I'm an introvert masquerading as an extrovert.
You do such a good job.
I know. But now it's really true. I really am an extrovert. But before, I would go to like a Chamber of Commerce network night. I would get there and I would start thinking, I wonder if everybody's wearing dresses. I wore pants today. And then I would drive around the block. Oh, I wonder if people have been here before. I mean, if I'm the only new person, and I would drive around the block. And I mean, after you've talked yourself out of it and you've driven around the block 4 or 5 times, you just go home because it was easier. And one day I got up and I looked at my calendar and I knew I had that chamber meeting tonight. And I looked at that post-it note and I said, what would I do today? Just if I were no longer afraid.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? You'd get there, you'd pull into the first stall you saw, and you'd walk in and you'd just take whatever came. And I walked right in that first time. And I just thought, my normal MO would be to stand and wait and see if anybody came up to me. I'd be so afraid that it looked like I was standing by myself and I didn't have any friends, or that I didn't have the right clothes on, or that I wouldn't know what to talk about with people. I'd have to initiate conversation. So I did. Hi,
Yeah.
This is my first time here. I see you have a name tag. Where do you get those? Oh, over there. Okay, thanks so much. And I go over there. I say, hi, my Mary Crafts. Oh, thank you so much. Now, is there a program? I don't really know how the day runs. Yeah, there'll be a little program later, but now you just kind of get food and mingle and talk to people. Oh, okay, great. And I walk up to the next person and say, do you know where the food's located? And that's right over here. I said, oh, great. And but guess what? I met so many people that night, not because one of them walked up to me.
Right.
Not because one of them reached out to include me.
Right.
It's because I included myself. And I never hesitated walking into a room again.
That's one of the things, kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about is that, you're retired, you've accomplished like pretty much everything under the sun. But yet you're not stopping. So I wanted to know, so what's your why now?
Yeah, my why is still pretty clear. At first, I thought after I retired that my why was to teach people about fear and help them overcome it. And I had been given so much as I was on my journey that it was my time to give back. But about a year ago, I took on a different mission for my life. And my mission now is to be a part of the world's dream. And the world's dream, the dream of humankind, is oneness. To set aside all the things that we see that separate us, and instead see the things that bring us together, that create us as one. That's why the political system right now is driving me kind of like bonkers, because it's about separateness, and people want to point out all the things that keep us separate rather than pointing out all the things that bring us together. And that's super hard for me, but I know that's a part of my mission. And every day when I get up, I think to myself as I get up, swing my feet over and sit on the edge of my bed for just a minute, I actually think, what piece of oneness am I going to be about today? And I think through it and I think, well, like this morning, I thought, I get to give my podcast. I get to talk to 20,000 women on my podcast about things that matter. Today, I had a guest on talking about self-care. And then I said, and then after that, I get to go on Jill's podcast and share my journey. And I just see myself every day just throwing that stone out, dropping in the pond, and the ripple effect goes.
Yep.
Because I want us all to experience what I've experienced. I want myself to experience what you have experienced. I think we all want what other people have. And if we see each other in each other, then I can be that.
Right.
The things that I love and I see in you, rather than seeing them separating us. Well, I'm not a lawyer. I'm much older than she is. If I see that as separating us, but if I see it as connecting us, then through you, I am still young and I'm a lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. And I love this quote, life without purpose is an empty life indeed. And that's yours. But the thing that I love telling women, especially, is that you have purpose, you have meaning, you have this is cheesy, but really a divine, purpose in who you are. And I love what you do because you're continually seeking out those women, especially that don't feel that right now. And you're living proof that purpose is there. You just have to believe it. And like you said, knock out that fear of not being enough. Because guess what? We're all not enough. Like we all fail at something. And that's okay. It's about taking that step, moving forward, becoming that best version of yourself. And Mary Crafts, at your age now, I see every day you living your best self. And that's and I see you on social media too. And I just will let everybody know that what you see on social media is actually the real Mary's Crafts. You are about as raw and real as it comes, and it's refreshing and it's great. And everybody should be inspired by you because you're not just a story that just like happenstance got famous. Like you lived it, you earned it. And so every little bit of success you have now is yours to grab. And I'm proud of you. I love you so much.
Thank you. Some people who are listening might think, oh, easy for her because she has a mission. She understands it. I do now have mission with a capital M, but I didn't always. And I had mission, but with a small m. And everyone has a mission with a small m. And if that's where you are right now, that's okay. My mission right now is to get my kids to school every day. Okay, that's a great mission. You get them to school and you live that and you do that and you create that. And then what other small m do I have? Well, I have the mission that I'm actually going to graduate from high school. I didn't graduate from high school, you might say, and I'm going to do this, or whatever the small m is, you run with it. And when you complete enough small m's, the universe acknowledges you and they give you a big M.
Yeah, that's special. Well, I would imagine your Unbounded is what, every bookstore and Amazon. Where can we get it?
Amazon is where I'm selling my book. And you can just write in Unbounded, Mary Crafts. It'll take you right there. It's pretty easy. It'll be in 2 days in your hands. But the thing I like about my book is a couple things. At the end of every chapter, I've included some QR codes so you can actually listen to a deeper part of whatever that chapter was about on my podcast. They'll take you right to my podcast and you can listen to me speak to you. And sometimes you might be at a chapter, you're like, yeah, I got that. I know all about that. So you don't listen to those podcasts. But you get to a chapter like, I'd like to know more about that. And so you listen to the podcast. And at the end, I've included a reader's guide so that you can use this in book clubs. So you can actually use it as a worksheet to say, well, how do I feel about that? And what things are keeping me stuck? And, one of my favorite chapters in the book is its title is Pack Your Bags. We're leaving Victimville. Because it's one of my pet peeves when I see people stuck in being victims.
Yeah.
Rather than, because when we finally realize that we are accountable for every single thing that we are experiencing in this life, some people don't want to step into that. They're like, whoa, 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 whoa. I like being the victim because then I don't have to take responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
But the good news is when you finally take responsibility, you can what? You can change it. If you don't like what you're in the middle of feeling, you can change it. Now, I had one woman the other day come up to me and say, Mary, so what you're saying is that I am responsible for my dad sexually abusing me when I was a little girl. I reached out and I pulled her in my arms. And I said, oh no, my darling, you are never responsible for the actions and thoughts of someone else. Never. But you are always responsible for the actions and thoughts of you.
Mm-hmm.
And only you. So your dad was responsible for that, but you are responsible for where you are today. And what are you going to do with the rest of this life? Are you going to stay stuck in that? Or are we going to grab together, hold on, and change the trajectory of your life now?
I love that. So special. Mary, you're just a joy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. I love being with you, whether it's on a podcast or out to dinner or just shooting the breeze.
I love it. That's another episode of No One Dies from Divorce. Please join us next week. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, follow, and share. I'd love to hear your questions and feedback. You can contact me at community@jillcoyle.com. See you next time. I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. Any advice given on the podcast is general and shall not be construed as legal advice.